All right, welcome back to the Elias Macco Show. Now, a U.S. judge has ruled that Google is acting illegally in order to monopolize online searches and the related advertising. That's how Google makes their money, and owned by Alphabet. That's how Alphabet and Google make their money. The case dates back to 2020. The U.S. Department of Justice sued over Google's control of 90% of the online search market. A man so cool and a man who knows so much that he's probably on DuckDuckGo right now and doesn't even bother with Google is CTV tech expert Carmi Levy, and he's on the line. Hi, Carmi.
Oh, now everyone knows my secrets, aren't
It's just every time I talk about Google and someone will send me a message saying, you have to use DuckDuckGo, right? And I'm like, yeah, I use DuckDuckGo. I know, we're aware. But everyone knows this. It's like a stranglehold. You open up your iPhone, default search Google. You open up a Samsung phone, default search Google. They're paying lots of bucks for this. So tell us, Carmi, in a nutshell, about this ruling and how big it is.
They are. There's a reason and that they are a verb. There's a reason that they're as dominant as they are, and part of it is technology. They were the best search engine out there. The results that they returned were always qualitatively better than any competitor, and so arguably, if you put Google up next to Bing or DuckDuck, or in an earlier generation, if you ever used, I don't know, Yahoo's search engine or Alta Vista or Ask Jeeves, Google was just a better search engine. But quality only gets you so far. And what Google has done in the 26 years since it was launched, it hasn't just relied on its technological superiority. It has also paid big bucks to ensure that it is the default choice for searching, because when you search, you are kicking off. That is essentially the underpinning of the entire digital economy. That's how Google made $238 billion in advertising revenue last year. It all started with search. And so the problem here is that Google is reaching deep into its pockets. Last year, it paid Apple $20 billion to be the default search engine on Apple's products. So when you pick up your iPhone and you open up a search box to search for something, it's Google that runs it. And of course, it's Google that gets all the revenue that's driven by that. And because Google pays such a huge amount of money that no one else can keep up. Same thing with your Samsung phone, $8 billion over 4 years. So essentially what they're doing is they're locking up the best waterfront digital real estate out there, and they're ensuring that no one else has an opportunity to come in. Could you and I go into the settings and maybe change the default? Absolutely. But the history shows consumers aren't willing to do that. Once we buy a phone and we start using it, we don't tend to roll up our sleeves and change those settings. If you are the default option when the thing is manufactured, you're going to be the default option for as long as that phone is owned. And that's a problem if you're anyone else. That's why Google has 91% of the market, and Microsoft's Bing is under 4%. If a company like Microsoft can't compete, nobody can.
So, Carmi, there was one thing, a small thing in your answer that was very telling, and it was the tense of the verb. You said they were. You're talking about Google search results and how good they were. You were using past tense. And I want to talk about that for a bit, because it has become very clear to me that Google search results are becoming more and more useless. I know I add the word, like whatever I'm actually searching for, I add the word Reddit at the end, maybe now 80% of the time. So I'll get the link of Reddit with the actual answer. So why are Google search results getting so bad?
Part of it is the rise of AI. And we are 30 odd years into the search engine era. And we're approaching the end of it. And we've been hearing all sorts of stories since ChatGPT launched almost 2 years ago now about how AI is going to make obsolete basic search. So why would we use search terms and then sift through a bunch of links? Hopefully, one of them will be the one that we're looking for, when we can just ask a question, a fully formed prompt, and it gives us a fully formed answer. Isn't AI kind of the next generation of search? And to a large extent, that is the case. And Google, unfortunately, it's really good at search, and that was kind of its what we call its core competency. That really is the foundation of the company. It's not so good at AI. They've introduced something called Gemini, which is their form, their answer to OpenAI's ChatGPT. It's their chatbot. It's their model for the future. And when they tried incorporating it into the Google search engine, it started going the wrong way. It started suggesting things that weren't real. It suggested that we put glue on top of our pizzas to keep the toppings from sliding off. It recommended rocks as a health food because they were high in minerals. And so you're absolutely right. As Google struggles to move from the search engine era to the AI era, just like every other technology company, it can't afford to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And unfortunately, technologically, it means that search, which we've trusted for almost 3 decades, isn't quite as good as it used to be. And if your Google results aren't as high quality as you thought they once were, you're definitely not alone.
So let's just talk about what the judge said here. Well, what are the headline notes for you on why this is such a big deal?
Huge deal because for a judge to look a tech company dead in the eyes and say you are a monopolist. The last time we saw that was in 1990 when a judge did the same thing against Microsoft. So this happens once in a generation. It's happening now, and it means that governments and the courts are not afraid to take on big tech and essentially rein in their power. So there are lots of other lawsuits, not only against Alphabet and Google, but against Amazon, against Apple, against TikTok, for much the same thing. So the takeaway here, the headline for me is this isn't just about Google. This is about the entire industry, and we can expect this case to set a precedent against other tech companies in the months and years to come, which basically means the good times are over for tech companies. Their years of doing as they wish and pushing other companies around as they get bigger and bigger, those are slowly drawing to a close.
Can I ask you, obviously Google, 91%. We mentioned DuckDuckGo. We mentioned Bing. Is there a product that you are using that maybe people don't know about to get answers to questions that you have?
No, I mean, I use DuckDuckGo as my alternative simply because it isn't pulling in massive amounts of data from my device. That's the problem with Google is it's tied into a broader ecosystem that across all of your devices that you're signed into, it's watching your activities and it's incorporating the answers that it gets from that into the results that it gives you. So it's very biased toward you, and I don't necessarily always want that. Yeah. So what I do is I open up DuckDuckGo in a private session. So in other words, no data going into it at all, and I get pure unadulterated search results. Well, that to me is a much more direct method, and I'm also not giving up a huge amount of private information for the privilege of getting search results.
Clearly, Carmi, we're not searching for the same stuff because I actually like that Google knows some stuff. Like, to me, if I type in MLS, it should know, like a good search engine, and it needs to know stuff about you. Am I looking for real estate or am I looking for soccer standings? Like when I type in Twins, am I looking for the Minnesota Twins baseball team or am I looking, I'm about to have twins, right? Babies. I kind of, like that. I think that's an advantage that Google has. And just on the DuckDuckGo thing, regionally, like if I do a search for the political party in Quebec, there were so many times if I did a search for CAQ on Google, it always knows what I'm searching for. DuckDuckGo would send me some U.S. company that just happens to have the letter CAQ in its name. So, sometimes there's an advantage to knowing stuff about me and where I am.
There certainly is, and there's no question. The customization that all of that data acquisition, all of that tracking of our activities gives us, most of us like that. We like that convenience that the tools that we use are kind of adapted to our particular scenario, that my world is very different, for example, than yours, and our tools reflect that. And I think that's a good thing. But I think the problem then becomes that what happens when all that information is then shared with others? And I know that behind the scenes, Google is taking all that data because I allowed them to, because I signed up for this. and they're sharing with all sorts of other companies, and it ends up in places I may not be comfortable with. Whereas if I'm using a tool that has a somewhat lower profile, I can control that somewhat more. And you can adjust for the customization just by tweaking some of your search terms. You can add terms to it to localize it a little bit better. You kind of get used to the DuckDuckGo way of doing things. But of course, as we've seen, we're used to using Google for 20, 25 years. Most of us don't want to change our ways, and I get that. And so I kind of keep both up and running, and I try to use a variety of tools depending on what I'm up to. And I think most of us would probably benefit from a similar approach. Don't put all your eggs in the same Google basket. Spread them around a bit.
Carmi, I tell you something. We have the best, we have the best listeners in radio. They're really cutting edge. And I kid you not, I wasn't going to mention it because I was like, it's too niche. And as the Lord is my witness, I have it open right now on my laptop. I have a listener that wrote in, and I was iffy on mentioning it, but I will because the listener wrote in. You have to try perplexity.ai if you want to see how an AI augmented search engine will work. And let me tell you something. If you haven't tried it, let me recommend perplexity.ai. This listener is on the money. I got to leave it there, Carmi. We'll talk real soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Elias.